seen as being highly unprofessional and so on and so forth. But back in the 70s, I think, most of the crowd was sort of quite, drunk anyway, and it just seemed to be part of the whole culture there.
Yet during a show at Birmingham's Odeon Theatre on August the 5th, 1976, that all changed. During a drunken rant between songs, Clapton expressed his support for the controversial political figure Enoch Powell, who in the late 1960s had risen to prominence with an inflammatory speech against the Labour government's Race Relations Act, in which he declared that Britain's post-war immigration policies would lead to violence.
We must be mad, literally mad as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents who are for the most part the material of the future growth of the immigrant descended population. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
Since this speech, Powell had become a figurehead for nationalists and far-right groups, preaching a Keep Britain White agenda. And Clapton's explicit support for him implied that he himself sympathised with these racist sentiments.
Enoch Powell at this time is like the lost leader of a right-wing Conservative Party of your nightmares. He is very vocal, very visible. He's had this role for a number of years, ever since he was forced to resign from the Conservative front bench because of quite extreme views he'd expressed on immigration. He is still, by the mid-1970s, a kind of hero to a certain kind of racist right that exists on the fringes of the Tory party, in the National Front, and so on and so forth. So for Clapton at this point in time to quote Enoch Powell approvingly is highly inflammatory. This is Eric Clapton, who has perhaps done more than anybody else apart from John Mayall in British music to open our ears to black music, to the music of the Mississippi Delta, which came out of slavery and sharecropping and segregation and all of these indignities that were heaped on the heads of black southern workers. And here he is, standing before us at a rock concert, telling us that immigration in Britain is out of hand and Enoch Powell is the man, and we should shut the doors and not let all these people into our green and pleasant land. This is deeply shocking. I mean, I don't know how it played in America, where they wouldn't probably know who Enoch Powell was, but in terms of British music fans, I mean, it could have finished him. I mean, in a way it did for a while. The backlash was enormous, and rightly so.
Almost overnight, Clapton had become a pariah in the UK, and a music press already underwhelmed by his recent output now turned ferociously on this once revered artist. Yet even as the Rock Against Racism campaign was formed in Britain in response to this drunken rant, some of his band were totally unaware of the gravity of his comments. And despite pressure from journalists, Clapton himself refused to capitulate and simply focused on the tour at hand.
He never had to apologize for anything or even explain himself, because if he said something to the group and I was there, I said, I don't really care, Eric, it doesn't matter. So you can say anything you want and you can, whatever the case may be, as soon as it interferes with the music and it interferes with my job, what I'm doing here and how I feel with the band and how we get along, then I'll open my mouth. But right now it's like, I really don't care. Let's just continue on and tune your guitar, please.
What I regret is that he's never apologised for it, and I've interviewed him. I've got enormous time and respect for him, and he's a fascinating interviewee and courteous and polite, and he thinks hard and deeply about your questions before he answers them, but he refused to apologise, and I've asked him twice. What he said to me, he said, look at the music that I love, look at the music that I've played over the years, the blues, how could someone like me ever be a racist? I'm not a racist. It's outrageous that people accuse me of racism. Well, in that case, Eric, how about saying, yeah, I said a very stupid thing and I've regretted it ever since? He hasn't said that.
Tomorrow, it's the series.